Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Here's the Thing. Today, I've got my friend Adrian here with me. We worked very briefly together, and he's also
Yes.
involved in a variety of things in terms of content creation, from TikTok all the way to a podcast. So, we're going to talk about all of that today and his story as well. How are you, my friend?
Hi, I'm doing good. Oh my goodness. I love the title. Here's the thing. That's very catchy.
Thank you very
That's very
much.
nice. Hi, Chetan. Thank you. And it's been a while since we've caught up with each other, but as Chetan said, we've worked briefly, like
Very
literally
briefly.
just just a week. Was it just it was just a week
Yeah,
getting to know each other. We were working for this telecom company and we were like in training for a week. It was our induction. And that's it. After that, we all went to our
yeah.
normal lives, or not normal lives. We went on back to our lives
Our
and
own paths, our own whatever,
yeah, our own paths, and kind of just saw each other at like the background of our lives, and we're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, and social media,
We
of
were in
course.
training, right? And the first thing I
Yeah.
noticed was when you walked in, you introduced yourself. You're so dynamic. Not just were, you still are, right? And I was so sort of interested and impressed with that energy that you have.
Uh,
And I was like, wow, what do you do? And then I asked you, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm a podcaster. I was like, ah, makes sense.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
got that. I've got I've got this and that and this and that, and I just yeah, that's a funny thing. I wear many hats, but no, I remember that. I remember meeting everyone. Do you remember how we all introduced
I
each
did. We
other
were in
to
a little
ourselves?
circle, and we were like, all right,
Yeah,
I'm Chetan, blah, blah, blah. I went to
and
this
then
uni.
here's someone. Yeah, and then every time that someone comes in, there's another one that adds to the
Yes.
circle, and the whole
We just
circle
started
repeats
introducing
the
ourselves all
names.
over again.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like no one said do this, do that. We all were just joining in like a social, it was like a social contract of
Exactly.
everyone to introduce ourselves. And I think all of us found it easier to just repeat it all over again instead of shaking hands
Correct.
and doing it sometime again. And with that, we all remembered each other's names by the end of the
Yeah,
first day of training,
that was
which is
good,
really,
man. And
really,
I can't believe
I
it's
know, that was
almost a
fun.
year ago now that that happened.
I
And
know.
we said we'll
I know.
catch up, and it just didn't happen.
Never did. But at least we all went billiards.
Yeah,
We went
yeah,
pool after the last
that
day,
is
but
true.
never did happen again. But I did try catching up with the other Ben and Finn,
Oh, that's
but
good.
it was just like once and then that's it. And I've been trying to, but I'm like, I really can't with all the things that's been going
I
on with
know.
work and all that. It's a
That's
lot.
exactly it. You do a lot of things, and I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
if I came up and asked you today, hey, describe yourself, what would you say?
Oh, I love this. This is so up in my face at the moment. I know this is very what do you call that?
Yeah.
Spontaneous. I would definitely say the biggest thing. So how could I describe myself? I am this, well, energetic person who does so many things. I am someone who works at childcare, so I'm a kid at heart.
Hmm.
That's how I describe myself. Kid at heart, passionate, energetic, and just, full blast, doing everything as much as I could and making the most of my day on a daily basis.
That's amazing.
I, yeah, I stay awake for a long period of time and I sleep the good 7 hours,
7 hours.
7, 8 hours.
That's pretty good,
Yeah.
man. Honestly, that is pretty good.
Yeah. That's what I try to do. That's what I try to do. The 7 hours, my sleep is important. Sleep is a must. So I try to
100%.
get that going as much as I could. Yeah.
And have you always been this way, like full of passion, energy, and like that? Or was it something that you found within yourself?
I actually, this is a new question that was asked to me. Huh? This is a very new one. I've never really put a lot of thought into it. But I think growing up, I've always get the award. You know how I don't know if it's the same here in Australia because I grew up in the Philippines.
Hmm.
You know how everyone gets awards. There's like academic awards. There are the top sections, and you get this grade and average, so you're gonna be top five of this
Yep.
section or this class. I usually get into the top five and then fall off mid year,
Okay.
but um, but I'd always get the ribbon at the end of the year
Yep.
that would always say either most energetic, most cheerful, most talkative, in all the sense of the word. I was that. And then my parents would always say, "Oh, you're so hyper, stop eating
Yeah,
chocolates." Or they would actually tell me that I've got, ADHD, but I
yeah,
never was really diagnosed, so I wouldn't know. And if I did, and if I do, I don't mind it.
yep.
It's just this has been me the whole time. But growing up, the passion came along more of once I got a little footing with morality, I would
Hmm.
say. Like, not moral, like when your moral judgment comes into play, at least around adolescent period, when you
Yeah,
start to understand that there are a lot of things that weaves in your life
yep.
other than just yourself and your grades and whatever. You start to understand that, oh, there's a lot of things that work cohesively in your life that makes up whatever you're going through and whatever you're working
Yep.
towards. So the passion came at a later time, and I think I only ever was able to tap into that passion
Hmm.
before the pandemic.
Before the
I
pandemic.
would
Okay.
say before the pandemic. Um, Around 2019, I would say. So 2019, I was deciding, and it was, I think, at the age where I was, how old was I? 2019. I think I was 23
Hmm. Hmm.
at 2019 or 24, whatever what age that was. But it was the time where I was thinking of, well, it's my time to actually sit down, buckle up,
Yep.
and get my career going.
Yep.
I was a I was a preschool teacher throughout 2018 to 2019.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I was still a preschool teacher then, but I had to decide how I want to advance that. And that's when I decided to go to apply for Australia. But
Yeah.
then COVID 19
Of course.
happened and I got stuck in whatever. So during that period of waiting, resting, and waiting for the visa approval and all those, that's when I kind of like pulled myself together,
Hmm.
dug deep, and tried to understand where I'm most passionate about in my
Yeah.
life and what I'm most happy doing. So, what was left of those things that I had to understand was mostly I really love this idea, metacognisis or
That's an
metacognitive.
interesting
When you,
word. Yeah. What does that mean?
yeah, yeah. So when you talk about the metaphysical, you talk about your brain and how you think.
Hmm.
So a lot of people, I like thinking
Yep.
about how I think.
Ah,
So
okay.
that's how it is.
Yeah.
So metacognitive makes it you think about how you're thinking and how you perceive
Hmm.
things, constantly picking up the pieces and the puzzles and say, this works for me.
Yep.
Why does this work for me? Because this is what I like. And this, like, you constantly deconstruct and construct again what goes on in your brain. And it's like a process of just, it's an idea that you're a lifelong learner.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
And that on the scale of 1 to 10 and how life is going to be for you, it's about learning how to get over and get through things that
Hmm.
life happens in front of you, like how it
Absolutely.
does happen in front of you. So at that point, I was left with that. I was reading self help
Hmm.
books on the daily, like a devotion, and then I'd write on my journal to process how I felt about the day and how I feel and how what I want to affirm with myself on that day,
Yep.
if I wanted to be the best, blah, all those, and then shed it down again. I enjoyed content creation
Yeah.
and roller skating.
Was
I
that when you
love,
started it, or was that prior to the pandemic?
yeah,
That was during the
no,
pandemic,
the content creation was around 2017 when I was
2017.
younger, but I never thought that it would be something else.
Yeah.
I just like writing, so I wrote a blog at the
Yep.
beginning, and then did Instagram, and then after Instagram, I was like, I don't really know, and then I was just renewed. It's like I was renewed again in doing content
Yeah.
creation. When I did 2020, I did my podcast, and then I started hopping on the TikTok trend. Like everybody's been telling me,
Yeah.
go TikTok, do this, do that. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot since I'm at home and I'm not
Might
doing
as well.
anything.
Yeah.
Not might as well. Like not really not doing anything, but there's so much time in my hands that I can't even go out and do all these other stuff. So might as well. But the truth about it is the podcast, I do have a podcast. It's called Love, Growth, and Freedom. It was a podcast that we were shedding, right? Like when we talk about all this, I shed it down. I've got into metacognisis, thinking about how I think, mostly self-improvement
Hmm.
and lifelong learning. And then I shed it out down to content creation and doing some roller skating. With the content creation, I already gave up on that, but then it picked up again. But I brought in Love, Growth, and Freedom. It's a podcast that believes in love, acknowledges growth, and encourages freedom. And you can listen to it on any podcast streaming platform. But this podcast was actually in incubation mode
Hmm.
since 2019 because I went through a breakup, and I think that breakup made me just start to pick up the pieces and figure out how can I get my life back in order
Of course.
and take back what's mine again, and understanding and being more self-aware. So that podcast was already been written and incubated for that 2019.
Yeah.
And then I was really going to release it on 2020 before even knowing that there would be like
Yeah.
a pandemic or a lockdown that would
So
happen.
this was pre-planned, the creation of your
This was
podcast.
the creation, yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
and then like on March, when it all came crashing
Yeah.
down, when we all are locked down in our own homes, I was like, okay, well then I'm releasing it.
Wow.
Either
Yeah.
way, I was planned releasing, so I did. And then it went on and went on. Up until now, I still do it, but I don't do it as vigorous as
Hmm.
I would before, because I would have week by week by
Yeah.
week, like I'd have 10 episodes in
Wow.
a span of 10 weeks with no
Okay.
rest.
Yeah.
And then I'd take a rest for 2 weeks and do it again, 10 episodes all throughout. So
100%.
it was a lot. It's just because I had a lot of time in my hands
I
then,
do
because I didn't have
understand
to
that.
go travel and whatever. But it was beautiful because that podcast and that content creation made me just feel like, okay, I am here creating something that I enjoy.
Hmm.
And it's mostly, I keep telling this to people. People would comment and message, especially on TikTok, would comment and message of how much my videos help them.
Yep.
And I would all say my gratitude and thank you. But whenever I explain it, I always tell them that, you know what, I've always done it for myself. And I'm
Correct.
just happy that it's helping you out.
Yeah.
I'm happy that it's making you think, because this is how I'm thinking and this is how it all comes to me. And then I let it out. If that makes you think, that makes you think about how you're feeling and how you process your things. I'm happy that it helps.
Wow.
Like I'm happy that it works for you. Because for me, that's how it works. And for me, I think that is what draws a lot of attention to it, is that it's done within my own comfortable, genuine moments in my life,
Yeah.
sometimes the most vulnerable ones that I've had. And I just share it out there. And even in lieu or in line with content creation, I also found a new hobby called roller
Yep.
skating, and I've been dancing in motion and moving and sharing that with a lot of people. And that's where I also gained a lot of friends through like roller skating. So
Yeah.
it's a whole lot of thing. It's really a domino effect of what happened.
With the pandemic.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and the last thing I kind of just gotten to know about my passion is really, I really do love teaching kids. I
Hmm.
really love being around this innocent fairy energy of children, where you have the opportunity to show them how much love you can have and give to people, and also how much responsibility that they could take with their own actions. I feel the reason why I probably got into teaching was, growing up, I never really had anyone
Yep.
that I could say that I had this growing up.
Correct. Like a
So
mentor
me
or a,
teach,
like, figure
yeah,
to look up to.
exactly. Yeah, so me being in the education industry is an amalgamation of, or a collection of me thinking I'm being the person that I needed when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And if ever there was someone like me from the kids that I teach and come to me and ask for help, I'm happy to be a beacon of these people by that moment in time.
Yeah.
Like, to be able to provide, because I feel like, honestly, growing up, I don't remember or feel like I've gotten all the necessary things that I needed,
Hmm.
or the necessary emotional support that I needed growing up.
Yeah. And how did you use to deal
Culturally,
with it then, at that point in time?
um, because
Yeah.
culturally, we're not, and even in my family background, we're not really sweet to each other.
Yeah. Okay.
You barely hear the words, "I'm proud of
Yeah.
you," "I love what you did," or it was always about just proving yourself,
Hmm.
and that you could just get a little thumbs up or good job, and then
And then
that's
you keep
it.
going.
Like
Yeah.
this, you keep going, you gotta keep moving on. More things have to
Yeah.
come. You have to still get this or get that and be this and be that. And I think growing up, since you've brought that up, growing up, I feel like the way that I handled those were at the beginning, it was rocky. It
Yeah.
was full of hatred. It was full of just like, when I grow up, I'm gonna be this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make you all suffer. Like it was me taking control of my own karma.
Yep.
But I was like, no. Then as I grew up, as I processed my emotions and my things,
Hmm.
I kind of understood what are the things that I had to let go and unlearn and work towards so that I could now develop my relationships
Of
and
course.
my connections with the people around me in a better way and communicate in a much more better way. But growing up, it has affected me because in a sense that I overcompensated for a lot, and well, being a gay kid in a very religious country like the
Yeah.
Philippines, and it being Catholic, it was hard to actually fight for a spot in the table. You've heard
100%.
this, you've heard feminism talking about women wants a spot on the table, or they people. You'd always have people advocating for certain things,
Yep.
and I think that's what I was doing for my whole life
Wow.
as a kid.
For yourself.
I was for myself.
Yeah.
I was advocating. I was my own voice. I was trying. And the thing is, even if I was advocating for myself, I couldn't find my own voice then because
Yeah.
I wasn't so secure enough of who I was
Exactly. Yeah.
growing up. So it was a struggle. I had a lot of moments where I'd lash out on friends. I wouldn't know how to express my feelings. I'd lose friends over petty fights, and
Yeah.
you know, it it was part of it. I'm I'm fine with it. I don't regret any of those,
Yep.
but I do acknowledge I've done a lot of mistakes growing
I
up,
understand.
and I don't ever want to fully blame that, oh, this is how I was raised or
Right.
whatever, because even if that's how I was raised, I had full choice now. Like,
Correct.
it's
Yeah.
okay. It's collateral damage anyway. Like, whatever happened before, your mistakes, whatever, it's collateral damage. You couldn't have done it better the way you couldn't have done it better with the knowledge that you were given and with the skills and the tools you were given. So now that you have the tools and skills, I think that's where you kind of just have to, all right, it's time to buckle up, sit down, see what works and doesn't, and see what I want to keep within my life and the energies I want to keep. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us sit in regret and think about all the things that have happened to us in the past and be like, oh my God, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Where we don't realize that, hey, this version of you didn't exist then,
Yeah,
right? This
exactly.
sets of tools, of knowledge, and everything you have now, you didn't have then. So you did the best with what you had. So there's no
Yeah.
point, as you said, it's collateral damage. There's no real point in you
Yeah.
sitting here contemplating on, oh, what could you have done better? The only thing you can do is look
Yeah.
forward.
Exactly. And what could you do now to resolve? If you look at the past and you find something that you want to resolve, how can you resolve it now? How can you build another bridge?
Yeah, yeah,
Knowing that you can't bring that back anyway. It's just more of how can you rebuild it into something new that you could actually use and acknowledge and do better at this point. Because that's
100%.
it. I mean, I've seen a lot of people blame so many things on the past, and I used to be one of them.
Hmm.
I'd always say, "Oh, I was just a poor boy." It wasn't always in our family that we get always what we wanted. And now that I do, I spend all my money like this. Yeah, I did that for a couple of months. As an adult and earning
Yep,
money, I've been like, yes, spend on me because I've never gotten all I wanted when I was a kid. But sooner or later, that you realize, like, these things, you couldn't stop it from happening,
yep,
and you shouldn't blame yourself anyway. There were things that were your fault, sure, but it wasn't something that you could have controlled and you could have done better. You were correct. Like that, your version now doesn't exist then.
Yep,
So that version or that person that was has done their best to survive and go through that situation the best way they possibly could
absolutely.
and have grace with yourself. Yeah, exactly. So that's what it was.
And when you were growing up, I'm sure you had to have, as you mentioned, all these tough conversations with people who may not have particularly accepted you. When did you had have to do this? Like, what age were you like when you realized that, hey, I think I should talk to my parents, I should talk to my friends?
Oh, that's a funny story. I think this is a whole um outcome. So I knew it since I was
Mm-hmm.
like like 4 years old probably, and then I remember having sorry, I have to cough.
That's all good.
I had what do you call that? I had boy best friends
Yeah,
that I used to call on the telephone
yeah.
and the landline for younger people who probably did not have landlines before. Yes, landlines. I would call them up. I wouldn't be shy or whatever, and I'd be looking for them on the phone. And I didn't understand why I was particularly like wanting to hang out with them
Mm-hmm.
until I got into prep and then I saw this
Yeah.
cute guy and I was like, was taught the idea of a crush or whatever. So that's when I kind of understood, oh, I like boys.
Yeah.
But then at that point, grade one onwards is when I've had people say words like derogatory words like
Yeah.
faggot, but sorry, trigger warning. I said the word faggot, but the word fag, and then in Filipino translation would be said to me, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then there would be a kid teasing me because I kind of wrote that, sorry, Harry Potter, you were my first crush. So I wrote it down. I was having a crush on Harry Potter, and then this
Hey,
guy who
same.
found,
No worries. That's fine.
oh,
I'm straight.
oh,
Still like Harry Potter, man. Great
he's so
taste.
cute. He was so cute back in Sorcerer's Stone. He was so cute. And I was like, oh. And I was writing down on paper and somebody found it and somebody kept teasing me about it until whatever, the whole year. And then coming up, I think the earliest one where I had a real confrontation about it was grade three. Somebody comes up to me and said, you shouldn't be in this school because you're gay. And I
Oh.
was like, you shouldn't be here in this school because you're dumb.
Damn.
I had to, because you're dumb. Like, literally. My, I was young then,
Yeah.
guys. Don't judge me. But I was
Get
like, you're
better.
dumb.
Increase your
You're,
IQ. Get out.
yeah, I know. Do something about it. Your grades, nada. Exams, nada. At least I get to show up with good grades, and even
Yeah.
if I'm gay. So I think that point was that point in time made me like, all right, even if I was gay, I have to do this, do that, do this, and do that.
Yeah.
Like that's where I started overcompensating to the maximum
Ah,
of
I
my
understand.
abilities.
Okay.
So I had to do so much. I had to be like best grades all the time. I remember my mom having this rule on an exam. The only mistakes you could ever make is three. If it's more than three, it's not a
Wow.
good job. And I was like, ah. And I was, I was trained to study a lot. And the Philippines studying is a lot. It's an 8 hour thing. It's
Wow.
not just
Yeah.
until two.
I
Yeah,
absolutely
and
relate, man. But one thing I have to ask, so that three mistake rule, that means that, let's say there's a test, you score out of 100, that means the least you could get is a 97?
yes,
What?
yes. My mom would say, if it's more than five, it's not a good job. And I was just
Wow.
like, oh, okay. And my exams would probably be have the most 7 or 8 mistakes because it was math. I didn't really like
Yeah.
math, but 7 or 8 mistakes for math
Oh,
isn't
it's
so
not at
bad.
all. It's
Yeah,
not.
so I was like, okay. But my mom would always just she outgrew that, but
Yeah.
I remember having that on the top of my head and
Yeah.
I'd always have that. It always
Perfect.
has to be
Yeah.
3 mistakes or whatever. So I'd always get a lot of high grades. But then I'd have this one subject that would flunk out a little, that would not get me to the honor roll or top five of the class
Yeah.
because of that grade. It was a shame. I've always fell down or fell out one grade or one subject, but I don't really mind. It made me who
Of
I am
course,
today.
yeah.
It's fine. But I did have to overachieve growing up that part at that point and moment on.
Hmm.
So I had to try and do everything. So I did. I tried. I had to go through a lot of extracurricular
Yeah.
activities. Did swimming. Did kumon. Did musical
Yeah,
instruments.
yep.
Did
Sounds
sports.
very, very
It
familiar.
yeah, actually, I would not try to be a stereotypical whatever, but it sounds like a very Asian stereotype at the moment.
Like you
Like,
say this, and it seems like you're describing most of my life back in Asia as well. I feel like it's a huge Asian
yeah,
society,
it's
Asian
it's a
culture
huge
thing.
Asian thing, I would say.
And
They would love you to
yeah,
try
it's so
everything.
interesting that you also, like you said, you had to overcompensate, right? That's very
Yeah.
interesting. You overcompensated because you were discriminated against something that was a
Mm.
character trait of you. It's
Yes.
interesting you say that because I relate on a certain sense as well. And in Singapore, like that's where I grew up, that's where I studied and everything.
Yeah.
One thing is true is that there is racism. There will be racism wherever
Yeah.
you go. It's true. It depends on how you deal with it.
Exactly.
Obviously, growing up, you don't have the best tools because you don't know how. But
Yes.
for me, for example, when brown people were made fun of, they were just like, oh, hair's curly. Oh, you have too much facial hair. Or like, oh, you smell bad. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
My retaliation was to be as least Indian as possible. So I would try my best to not to make sure. Oh, wait, do I have any facial hair? Make sure you shave it. Like when I'm 15, 16, and oh, do you have any curly hair? Make sure you don't have curly hair. Oh, and just don't hang out with Indian people because if you do, then they'll make fun of you as well. So I try to be like the least Indian person possible,
Yeah.
like the opposite. So it's interesting you say the word overcompensation because that can happen when you're being targeted towards something that you can't really affect or change.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's not something that you could actually control. And the thing is, it makes you feel like when you were saying that in that aspect, looking into it, you
Hmm.
had to be the least Indian
Yeah,
person. You had to be the least of who you are
yeah,
just to compensate for the things that they
just to
feel.
exist. Yeah,
Yeah, just to exist. And it's not, see, that is in itself, our experiences somehow is a shared experience because discrimination happens everywhere. You've
yep,
got age, you've got gender, you've got
yep.
race, you've got abilities. People at that age, I would not blame that the kids, who bullied people or did
Yeah,
this and said things about things. I would just look at it as they didn't know any better. But
exactly.
I
Yeah.
think who you're supposed to call on to this, and when you look deeper, is that their background in the culture, that how they're talking about that com- comes from a whole lot of, it's either the community they're in, the
Yep.
home that they have, and all those. But giving all them the benefit of the doubt that they
Hmm.
didn't know better. But looking at that, see, we had to be so much different from who we are
Yep.
just to fit in. And it was so suffocating. It
Absolutely.
was just, until you come into yourself, you wouldn't know how you want to live your life because everybody's been telling you how you should be.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Everyone's putting those labels on you, and it's then up to you at a certain point in your life to then figure out who you are exactly. You know?
exactly.
And when do you think that was for you? Because you told me you worked extremely hard to come to Melbourne in the first
Yeah.
place, where you had, I, I'm not sure, you said, you were working a lot of jobs back in the Philippines and then you took a break, then you came to Melbourne.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. Good memory.
Thank you.
No, so what do you call that? Yeah, so we'll just go, just summarizing
Mhm.
all up the overcompensating. The overcompensating was, I was fighting the idea that I was gay. People have been asking me questions. When will you have a girlfriend? When will you have
Yeah.
this? Parents always forcing me, or people always asking me about my gender and or my sexual orientation, and I couldn't, before then, I couldn't say I was, and I couldn't be brave enough to say I was because people have always said so many bad things about it.
Yes.
And I think the biggest fear that came from me, or where it came from for me, was my fear of like my family wouldn't be able to accept me. And especially my dad had a lot of remarks that he's been saying about the community and
Okay.
me, a person being gay, was scary to me.
You heard
So
that
at
growing
that
up.
point, I yeah, I
Yeah.
heard that growing up on a very normal basis, which scared me. So I never really came into fully myself, not until college when I was like 17, 18.
Okay. Yep.
I knew I was gay. I was just, filling myself
Mhm.
up, getting myself the courage to uphold that and put some space for myself or, take space up as a gay person
Yeah.
in this world. And when I found really true, genuine friends who supported me at any point, at any cost, in that who's shown me that regardless of what I am and who I am and what I do, they they love me and they stay with me for who I am.
Hmm.
So I think having that support system and finding that family made me more comfortable.
Absolutely.
Finding my chosen
Yeah. A family
family
outside your
made it.
family. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, family that you chose for yourself, that your tribe
Yeah.
basically. So I got that around 2014. And then from then on, it was a journey of just coming into myself,
Hmm.
figuring out what I want, figuring out who I love and how I do things and what works for me, what matters for me. And then graduated, did cheerleading and all those. I did a lot of things in college anyway, but um, I then after college, that's when another phase of your life starts where
Yep.
you try to figure out what you want to do, your career. And I think the biggest problem that I had was people were growing up. I think this is apparent for everyone.
Hmm.
I think this is relatable to everyone, is that a lot of people growing up have been telling you who you're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
And I remember this quote: if you don't know who you are, the world will tell you who you are. So that, I don't know, I forgot who said that quote.
We'll
Where
find
was
out.
that? It's not me. We'll find out.
Now
But
let's just say it was you. It's
that,
fine.
eh, in that moment though, I was like, yeah. So at that point, I had to figure out myself and what I wanted and how I could define myself. And that was in a process from 2018 to 2019.
Mhm.
And then 2019, at the end of that year, I've already decided that I want to move to Australia.
Yep.
I want to study the early years learning framework. I want to be able to gain Australian experience, maybe build my own school once I finish
That's
it. It
amazing.
depends on how it all works. But I sat down with myself and just said, what do I want and how I feel about things. And I think the biggest journey of just defining me was was done during the pandemic. And
Mm.
I would say it wasn't a blessing, but it was a moment for me to take opportunity or to um take a leap or take a chance on this opportunity that was given out of sad and unfortunate scenarios and situations. So I was just learning about myself and how I could define myself and basically just keeping my head afloat while waiting and being anxious about the whole COVID-19 pandemic, being so scared.
Yep.
I remember just because I remember in our lockdowns in the Philippines, only two people can go out of the house, and
Yeah.
you have to have like a pass. And then every time they go out, I'd spray. It was an unfortunate scenario, but what could I have done? Like, I think the questions that came up to me more was, how could I make most of the time that I have here in the house?
Hmm.
What would I do? And that's when I took up a lot of other jobs.
Yeah.
I tutored kids. I did online creating. I did online hosting.
Wow.
I did social media management. I did, what else did I do? There's another one I did. I think, oh, that was just roller skating. And that was it. I mean,
Just
those are the
that's it.
five
Just
things
four
that
jobs.
that's
Very
it.
few.
That's four jobs, five things. So I don't know. I was just doing things, going on and over and over.
Yep.
Oh, I know the social media management job. That was more of the captions
Yeah.
yeah. Those are a lot. So those are the things that I've been doing then. But in the middle of all those was really more of learning how to define myself, learning how
Mm.
to define my boundaries. What what do I feel when somebody does this for me? What kind of person do I want to have in my life? What kind of energy do I think I attract?
Yep.
What, like, it was all those. You were I was just asking myself questions and questions. And that year, by the way, 2020,
Hmm.
I submitted my visa application on February.
Yep.
So I was just in a long wait. Is it going to be granted or is it not?
Yeah.
So it was that I was also having that anxiety and
Uncertainty.
like
Yeah.
uncertainty. That's a big uncertainty. And then I got the visa on August 2020.
Amazing.
Now, the bigger uncertainty was, will I be able to go to Australia
Yeah.
before my visa expires? Or do I have to reapply again? So I was waiting in the whole 2021, since everything was a bit getting better, they were getting vaccines. It's
Yep.
not getting
Yep.
so dark and unfortunate anymore, but there is still the dark parts. 2021 was a year when I was just mentally preparing myself for the journey that I want to embark because I've been approved.
Yep.
I'm just waiting for your borders to open.
Yeah.
So 2021 was just like, how can I be better? What can I work on this? What habits do I want to build? What's my vision for my future? And I was doing that on a daily basis. I'd write on my journal in the morning, write on my journal at night, read a book in the morning, read a book at night. And I was just timing my everything, doing my habits, doing a workout, doing things that I love the most that makes me feel alive.
Yep.
And I think that year for me was the year where I took on and said, this is me. This is
Wow.
Adrian.
Yeah.
This is what I want to enjoy. And this is how I want to enjoy my life. People would say working is not a life. Well, I work at a job where I enjoy what I do.
Hmm.
I don't work at all at a day in my life. I
Yeah.
would say it's work, it's exhausting, but it's what keeps me going. And
Absolutely.
when I'm away from my work, I feel like, damn, I missed it. I really miss it. I miss hanging out with kids. I miss teaching them,
Hmm.
making sure we do so much fun stuff that I get to do with them. It's a really big thing where I figured out. I think that was the moment where I said, I know who I am.
Yeah.
And knowing who I am, I will not falter. I will not beg. I will not ask anyone less than what I deserve.
Hmm.
And that's when I had this idea. I think this is one of my first TikToks that blew up. I said this, I'm done. I'm done waiting for other people or asking for people to stay in my life. Now, I'm going to leave the door open. It's up to you. It's your choice. If you love my vibe, if you love my energy, and if you want to stay, you can stay. If you want to go, the door is open for you. I'm not going to force anyone
Yeah.
to stay because that was the energy that I was emitting. That was the energy that I want to be in, is that I want to be here. I'm happy being with myself. I'm happy as I am. And whoever I'm becoming and however I'm becoming that way, I'm happy to support that.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to change as much as I need to sustain and actually live up to my life. So, yeah, that's.
Wow.
And then here I am. And then here I
And
am. I
here
moved
you
to
are.
Melbourne. I moved to Melbourne. It was crazy. 2022, the borders opened. So when I knew the borders opened at December 15, 2021.
Wow. Yeah.
And then the moment that it opened, booked a ticket, nada, bye bye.
See ya.
End of January, left, arrived here exactly February 1, which is my anniversary very, very soon.
Yep.
My first year here in Australia. But I moved and I was just like, I'm ready. Everything's in my file. I've got everything, my bag, the stuff that I want to bring, my documents, everything, and how I'm gonna and what are the things that I'm gonna do when I come in
Yep.
here. I was just like, I was ready to meet the world again after being stuck and after being here, working on myself. And this is the perfect time to actually apply and see
Yep.
how finding myself and knowing myself would fare in the world out here. Like,
Absolutely.
with
Yeah.
the world going back into its course and being normal a
With
little
a
more
refreshed
than,
version of yourself.
yeah, with a refresh. I was like, how am I going to take that? So So far, I'd like to say it's been faring okay, but mentally it's been a struggle. But I think looking back, because of all the things that I prepared and because of knowing myself and being able to say, this is what I deserve and this is what I'm going to get and this is what I'm going to say yes to.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to say no to all the other things that I don't deserve or that doesn't deserve my attention and energy. This is where it has led me. And the journey that I've had in Australia was really just divine timing for me, I would
Absolutely.
say. So I think, do you have any other questions? Do you have any questions that you want to ask before I continue with my journey in Australia? Because it's a lot.
So, yeah, well, so far, absolutely amazing, right? This journey that you've described. The question that I have for you, is there any sort of, I've noticed, right, whenever there's an emotionally significant event or there's something outside of our control that happens, it prompts people to change. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
And whether
Yes.
that is, a breakup, whether that is an entire pandemic happening, forcing you to be in your
Yeah.
home for 2 years straight, it might
I
result in
know.
some
Yeah.
character development. I think that's the right time to sort of look inward and reassess who you are as a person and come back
Yes.
from it. You can either let it
Exactly.
make or break you. Why would you let it break you, right?
Exactly. And it's a time that you get to have to actually just to see. It forced us to actually see. What I would like to say, COVID-19 held a mirror in front of all our faces
You're right.
and made us reflect on the things that really matter to us
Absolutely.
rather than what's going
100%.
on in our, yeah, on social media or this and that. It was so much. Yeah.
And
Okay.
when you came to Melbourne, did you find there was any specific moment that you experienced or something that happened here that was a turning point for you in your life here in Melbourne?
Um, there Actually, I came here. I remember coming here, and I was just so ready.
Yeah.
I was just ready to say goodbye to my family, my friends. I was like, adios. I'll see you next time. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to fly, and I'm
Yeah.
ready to make new friends. And I think the biggest turning points that I came across here was I remember because went and scrolled through my journal
Yeah.
last year, yeah? And I came across the time that I got the call from
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
it's okay. I'll
call from
bleep it. I'll
Telstra.
bleep it. We're good.
Yeah, I said call from the job,
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, I'm going for the interview, and I got that job on the same day, Feb 12, and trained and whatever. And so I think that point made me feel like everything's going well and all that.
Yeah.
But it was okay. The first few months was like, yes, going well. But at that point, I was in a polyamorous relationship, and then I had a breakup also at that same, like in the month of May. So I was like, okay. And then had a new job,
Yep.
turning point again, working in childcare. But did you know that the interesting part about me working in a childcare
Hmm.
was, and I would say that this was well orchestrated by the universe or the divine timing, was I got into the job where we met each other in the
Yeah.
telco job. If you remember one of our co-workers there or co-team
Yes,
members
I
there,
do. I do remember. Yeah.
she she used to work for the childcare that I work at
Oh,
now.
wow. Yeah.
So she was the one who referred me.
That's
So me
amazing.
getting the job at the telco and getting that training at that exact moment and exact time
Yeah.
and being with her in the exact same store was like the key for me to getting where I am today.
Yeah.
And then I started my job after that. I got the interview, got the job, got all those. And I was like, okay, wow. And I think the biggest challenges were like, I bought a car, the car broke down,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
car like this, I hit, and it was a lot of like this financial stress. And I think the
Yeah.
biggest things that's been bothering me, or not bothering, what's like challenging me throughout these months was trying to navigate into being an adult.
Mm. Yeah.
Like this is the first time that I actually felt legitimately like an adult. I pay my taxes, I pay
Yeah.
registration for my car, I pay petrol, I pay for my the roof over my head. And looking at all those, it was just hard to keep afloat. And I'm like, how am I maintaining this and how do I intend to maintain this?
Yep.
And all I just wanted, yeah, so those turning points, I guess, were the ones that inspired me to change. But
Hmm.
I would look, I would look at myself right now. I really haven't changed much,
Yep.
but I've learned a lot of how I deal with things again.
Exactly.
So basically, the things that I prepared in 2021. So what did I learn? I learned how what are the energies I want to keep in my life? I learned how I want to work more,
Hmm.
work more than complain about how hard work is.
Okay.
I
Wow.
want to
Yep.
be able to communicate my feelings and the things that I need to people without feeling ashamed of it.
Hmm.
That's what I've been doing that now. And I think what I've been learning more, or what I've learned more in this journey of mine, was that I could apply all those things that I wanted to do for myself
Yeah.
this year. And what I'm just learning is that how I'm reacting to these, because it's the first time now I'm in a happy relationship, and
Hmm.
I've been on this with this person since June, so it's been 8 months. We've been with him. I've been learning how to say I feel upset about this. I
Yeah.
feel this. I've been learning how to communicate my feelings, and what I just didn't prepare for, I didn't know how to prepare for, is how I'd react if how I'd react once I've done these things. Like if I say
Yeah.
I'm upset, because I remember being so scared of, not scared, but so icky about saying how I feel
Yep.
or whatever, because it was perceived as weakness growing up.
100%.
So,
Yeah, that's so true. That's so
so
true.
it was the biggest culture shock to me, I think,
Yeah.
because people here are quite nice to me. People would say they're that I've been doing so much of a great job at one thing, and I remember doing this at home, but no one would actually bat an eye and say you've done a good job, and now
Yeah.
they make a
Yeah.
big deal. And I'm
Absolutely.
like, how I'm processing this, I'm learning, and how they care about your well-being when you're sick, when you're this,
Yep.
go home, don't go to work, and it's a lot. And I think those. And finally, I think one of the biggest feelings that I've had to deal with this year was it was my first holidays
Yeah.
without my family.
Oh, yeah, of
So
course.
I had to spend Christmas, New Year with my partner and his family,
Hmm.
but I missed celebrating it with my friends. I'd have yearly dinners with my friends during that
Right.
time.
Yeah.
I'd be with my family. It was a whole lot of tradition and things that I used to do that I couldn't do now. And somehow I was limited to whatever I had now because of work, and I didn't get to make a lot of new friends because
Yep.
I've been busy. I don't really, but I'm trying. I think that was one of the things that I've been doing. And for that, with all those that I've realized and understood about myself, then I have decided that my word of the year would be connections and knowing how to
Connections.
connect. Yes. Like learning how to connect with myself again, with my own surroundings, with my with people I work with, genuinely giving chances of connections and bouts of connections with people that I come across with,
Yep.
because I was so consumed with making sure that I was keeping myself afloat
Hmm.
that I shut off and say, this is what I need to keep going.
Ah,
But now that
yeah.
now I'm a bit out of that survival mode.
Absolutely,
I'm
of
now
course.
more of, let's see what's going on around me. How can I make it incorporate in my routine and in myself and be okay with expending energy with people? So, yeah.
That's an amazing
So
word of
that,
the year, connections. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not too sure when this episode is going to come out, but whether it's the beginning, middle, or towards the end of the year, you can maintain a particular theme, right? For you, it's
Yes.
connection. So, whoever is watching, if you guys are listening, think about it. What would you like to emulate for the rest of this year? Think about that.
Yes. Yeah, because sorry, so for word of the year, you guys, I just did it. I've This is my third year doing it, and I remember hearing it from another podcast, and it it was closely related to the ikigai or your purpose of living it, what makes you. And I found ikigai to be very broad and big as a whole thing that you have to emulate for your whole life.
Various Venn
But
diagrams of things that you need to
yeah,
accomplish. Yeah.
yes, exactly. But then there's this word of the year where you kind of can work on it on a yearly basis, just making sure that everything that you do is relating or reflected on upon the word of your year.
Yep.
And I did it 3 years. I've had the first one was vulnerability. That was 2020.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was 2021. I'm sorry. Vulnerability 2021. I was learning how to get myself vulnerable, learning how to be vulnerable with my own self and with other people around. And it's just beginning to do that and allowing that feeling. And then word of the year for 2022 was patience, knowing that you have to be patient with what's going on in your life, patience with people,
Hmm.
patience with your situation, patience with how things will unfold, and everything will be working out in your way. Some one way or another, everything works out. Maybe in a way that you don't expect it to, but it does work out more in your favor when you look at it.
Yep.
It's a lot of those. And this year was connections. So I don't know if anyone wanted to, you know, word of the year is a very just nice way to give yourself a direction where you want your theme or your year to come to and how you want to live your life on that year and to be more present of what makes you feel or what makes things feel valuable to you too. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's a well said, well thought out explanation. I think that's given me a chance to think about what my word would be. My word for this year would be balance. Balance.
Balance. Oh, that's
Reason
lovely.
being,
Balance in what?
balance in everything. I think it's possible to do whatever you set your mind to. Absolutely, yes. But it's also essential to be able to do all the things that you value without getting burnt out or without focusing too much on just one aspect of your life and letting the other one die out. Whether it's overworking and not paying any attention to your social life, whether it's paying too much attention to your social life and not working hard enough on yourself or towards something that you value. I think it's possible to do each specific thing that you value and that you want to progress towards, but it's all about balance.
Yeah.
So that would be my word.
Oh, that's a lovely word. So best of luck with that,
Thank
with
you, man.
balance. I think with balance, there's also the idea of your relationships, the
Hmm.
energy that you put in, and all the passions that you have, and balance definitely within you, knowing how you could allow yourself to indulge in certain things and not indulge. It's a lot.
Of course.
It's a good word. I'll think about. I'll I'll think about my next year word. But for this year it's connections. It's I think
Connections.
what's nice about the word of the year, it comes out to you naturally
Yep,
when you feel like what you kind of have to. What do you feel like you want to work on? It's or when you see that these are the things that you saw that you lacked on the previous year, and that's what you want to do
that's a
more in the
room for
next
you
year.
to
It's
improve in. Yeah,
yeah, and you don't really have. It's not more of an improvement, honestly, but it's more of just allowing yourself to experience that. Because I think when people say I want to be the best version of myself, room for improvement, I
hmm,
think people would always think that we're always trying to improve ourselves or always trying to do that. But what I'm trying to do in my essence of doing this is more of like being able to experience that aspect of my life
hmm.
that I didn't pay attention to much.
I
So
understand. Yeah,
it's far less pressuring,
yep,
but it's a lot more fulfilling to be able to do that and take that for you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing, man. And I think
Thank you.
that pretty much tops it up. It was an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you being so open, honest, and vulnerable. My last
No
question to
worries.
you is
Thank
going to
you.
be if you have one piece of advice or one thing that you want to tell everyone, what would it be?
Um, I think I come off with this quote that Tyrion Lannister said: "Remember who you are and wear it like armor." Is that the quote? Yeah. Remember who you are, know who you are, and wear it like armor, so no one can use it against you. And I think that has been a quote that I've been holding on for a long time in my life because when you know who you are, when you're secure with what you can bring to the table and what you do, what you love, what you're passionate about, and who you are in the essence of your soul, you will not falter in the words of others and their opinions of you and what they think you should and shouldn't be doing. So I give you that advice. Get to know who you are. Figure out what you love, what makes your heart beat, what makes you passionate, so that you could use it. You could use it for yourself to tap into your whole life ahead of you. So,
That is
yeah.
amazing. Mic drop. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Mic
much,
drop.
man. And
Thank.
where can we find you? Where can we find all your content? We want to know your TikTok.
Oh.
Love, growth, and freedom. Tell me, where can we find you?
All right. Okay. So my TikTok, it's just Adrian underscore DRTE. It's Duarte. Those are my socials. I've got it on TikTok. I've got it on Instagram. Not on Facebook, not on Twitter. I only am on TikTok and Instagram. And my podcast called Love, Growth, and Freedom. It's found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, all the other podcasting sites that you can think of is found there. And some of them are in YouTube if you want to search it. But best bet, Spotify, Apple Music is where you can find them.
Perfect.
And yeah,
Go
I
follow
release
him on all of
episodes.
these platforms. Everything will be linked down below. You guys can go check him
Yes.
out. And again, it was an absolutely amazing conversation, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chetan. Bam.